The United States is staring down the barrel of a severe economic and diplomatic crisis. In a move we've never seen before, key allies, Qatar and Saudi Arabia, are reportedly preparing to review all trade with Washington as a hypothetical war with Iran escalates. This is the story of how America's foreign policy could trigger a devastating economic fallout and force its allies to choose a new side. For decades, the bedrock of American foreign policy in the Middle East rested on a simple, unspoken agreement. Gulf energy and capital flowed to the West, and in return, the United States provided an ironclad security guarantee. But now, in this scenario, that decades-old pact is shattering. A war, started by Washington, is forcing its allies into an impossible corner. Behind the scenes, a quiet but profound reassessment is underway in Riyadh and Doha. A review of contracts, investments, and partnerships that has sent a tremor through the foundations of the global financial system. The core of the issue isn't just a diplomatic spat, it's about survival. For the first time in history, imagine all 6 member states of the Gulf Cooperation Council targeted by the same actor, Iran, within a single 24-hour period. This is their nightmare scenario realized. And as Iranian missiles rain down on their gleaming cities, ports, and oil fields, these nations are asking a tough question. Is the American security umbrella worth the price of being a primary target in a war they never wanted? This isn't just a story about a trade dispute. It's about the potential unraveling of alliances, the weaponization of finance, and a strategic realignment that could define the 21st century. To understand the crisis unfolding in our hypothetical March 2026, we have to go back to its violent inception. Let's set the scene. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launch a massive, coordinated military assault on Iran. In just 12 hours, nearly 900 strikes target Iranian military infrastructure, air defense systems, and, most critically, its leadership. In that opening wave, Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei is killed. From Washington's perspective, the objective was clear: a decapitation strike to cripple the regime and its nuclear ambitions. But that's not what happened. Tehran doesn't collapse. Instead, it responds with a fury and sophistication that stuns observers. Within hours, Iran unleashes the most expansive and complex missile and drone campaign ever launched against the Gulf Arab nations. This isn't a limited tit-for-tat exchange. It's a calculated region-wide assault designed to inflict maximum economic and psychological pain, not just on America, but on its allies who host U.S. bases. Dozens of waves of missiles and drones hammer targets across Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Qatar. The targets are strategically chosen to shatter the Gulf's carefully curated image as a haven of stability and prosperity. In the UAE, Dubai International Airport is struck. Debris from intercepted missiles causes structural damage to the iconic Burj Al Arab Hotel. A drone hits near the Fairmont The Palm Hotel on the prestigious Palm Jumeirah. In Saudi Arabia, drones repeatedly target the massive Sheba oil field and the Ras Tanura refinery complex, one of the largest in the world. A projectile strike near a U.S. airbase in Al-Kharj kills 2 people. Qatar, which hosts the largest U.S. military installation in the Middle East, Al Udeid Air Base, isn't spared. The base itself is attacked, and the area around the capital Doha is also hit. In total, Qatar reports scores of drones and missiles targeting its territory. The message from Iran is brutal and unambiguous. If you host the American military, you are a part of this war, and your economic lifelines are legitimate targets. One regional expert describes the situation in stark terms, stating, "It is not our war. We did not want this conflict, yet we are paying the price in our security and our economy." This sentiment is now echoing through the halls of power across the Gulf. While these nations have spent billions on advanced American and Western air defense systems, the sheer scale of the Iranian barrage is overwhelming. The attacks forced the grounding of some 40,000 flights, the largest disruption to air travel since the pandemic. But the most devastating blow is yet to come. Iran's retaliation isn't just in the skies, it's aimed at the economic jugular of the entire world: the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is the world's most critical energy choke point. It's a narrow strip of sea separating Iran from Oman. But through this waterway flows approximately 20% of the world's daily oil supply and about a fifth of global liquefied natural gas, LNG. On March 2, 2026, in this fictional scenario, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps confirms it is closing the strait to all non-Iranian ships. It isn't a traditional naval blockade. Instead, Iran makes the strait commercially unnavigable through military threats, mining, and direct attacks. Within days, all major shipping carriers suspend transits. Insurance for any ship attempting the passage is canceled. The result? A sudden and catastrophic halt to the region's energy exports. Over 150 tankers are soon anchored outside the strait, a number that swells to over 400 oil tankers and 1,000 vessels in total. Oil traffic through the artery drops to near zero. For the Gulf economies, this is an existential crisis. The vast oil fields of Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, and the massive LNG facilities of Qatar, are suddenly cut off from their markets. Their storage tanks fill, forcing production to a halt. On March 2nd, Qatar, the world's leading LNG exporter, has to stop gas production, and 2 days later declares force majeure on its contracts, an admission that it can't fulfill its obligations. By March 7th, Kuwait follows suit, declaring force majeure and cutting its oil production. The collective oil output of Kuwait, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE plummets by a staggering 6.7 million barrels per day by March 10th. The global economic shockwave is immediate. Brent crude oil prices, which had been around $70 a barrel, skyrocket past $110, touching $126 per barrel. Analysts warn a prolonged closure could send prices to $150. This isn't just a number on a screen, it's a direct tax on the global economy. Jet fuel prices in Asia surge by nearly 200%. Diesel prices in Europe double. In the US, regular unleaded gasoline prices jump 20%, hitting household budgets hard. For the Gulf states, the blockade is more than just lost revenue. It's an attack on their national projects. Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 plan, designed to move its economy beyond oil, is entirely dependent on foreign investment and stability, both of which have just evaporated. The UAE's status as a global hub for business and tourism is shattered by images of fires at its ports. International visitor numbers to the region are projected to fall by as much as 27%, risking revenue losses of up to $56 billion. This economic strangulation is designed to achieve one goal: to make the cost of hosting American forces so unbearable that the Gulf states have no choice but to push Washington away. It creates the impossible dilemma they now face: stand with their American ally and face economic ruin, or distance themselves from Washington to appease an aggressive Iran. Before we explore the devastating choice now facing America's allies, take a moment to subscribe. We are committed to bringing you in-depth analysis of the geopolitical events shaping our world. If you find this content valuable, click the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Faced with economic collapse and relentless attacks, the leaders of the Gulf states convene an emergency summit on March 8, 2026. The agenda is radical, and for Washington, deeply alarming. According to reports, the nations, including Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, and Kuwait, begin reviewing all overseas investments and future commitments. One Gulf official states that countries have begun internal reviews to see if force majeure clauses could be used in current contracts to ease the economic pain. The most dramatic item under consideration is the potential drawdown of their vast investments held in US dollars. Collectively, the Gulf states hold an estimated $2 trillion in U.S. investments, a huge portion of which is Saudi-held U.S. Treasury bonds. The idea of withdrawing this capital is the financial equivalent of a nuclear option. It would mean selling off U.S. government debt on a massive scale, potentially triggering a sharp rise in U.S. interest rates, destabilizing the dollar, and plunging the American economy into crisis. This is the context for the reassessment of trade ties. It's not a formal threat delivered through diplomatic channels, but a desperate consideration born from a desperate situation. While the word freeze isn't being used officially, The discussions about scaling back or withdrawing from U.S. contracts and investments amount to the same terrifying prospect. The move is being framed as a precautionary measure, a direct result of budget strains due to reduced income from the Hormuz blockade and the war. The situation is incredibly complex. On one hand, the Gulf states feel abandoned and are paying the price for a U.S.-led conflict. There's a growing resentment that Washington failed to provide adequate protection. As one analyst noted, this feeling isn't new. It echoes Saudi disquiet after the U.S. failed to respond forcefully to Iranian attacks on its oil facilities back in 2019. On the other hand, these same nations are terrified of a premature U.S. withdrawal. As one expert warned, if America leaves now without a decisive victory, it would be like abandoning an injured lion, leaving a wounded but still dangerous Iran on their doorstep. This reveals the deep paradox at the heart of the Gulf's dilemma. They are being attacked because of their alliance with the U.S., yet they feel they need that same alliance now more than ever. Qatar's official position underscores this. On March 10th, a Qatari foreign ministry spokesperson is said to have stated that while their strategic alliance with the U.S. is not in question, its defense deals need to be strengthened. It's a delicate balancing act, reaffirming loyalty while desperately seeking leverage to end the conflict. Saudi Arabia's position is just as complicated. The kingdom had been on a path of de-escalation with Iran, brokered by China, and had even conducted joint military drills. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's Vision 2030 is built on regional peace. In January 2026, just before the hypothetical war, Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states signaled they would not allow the U.S. to use their airspace for an attack on Iran. And yet, some reports suggest both Riyadh and Israel had privately lobbied for a U.S. strike, believing it was the only way to neutralize the long-term Iranian threat. Now, with Iranian missiles hitting Saudi soil, Riyadh is caught. Its leaders are reportedly frustrated that the U.S. hasn't done more to protect them. U.S. senators have publicly lambasted the kingdom for not joining the fight directly, with some threatening consequences. At the same time, President Trump has called the Crown Prince to affirm that Washington stands with the kingdom. This mix of pressure and reassurance only adds to the strategic confusion in Riyadh. The hypothetical war that began on February 28, 2026, was intended to weaken Iran and reassert American dominance. Instead, it has thrown the entire region into chaos, shattered the global energy market, and pushed America's most critical alliances to the breaking point. The review of trade and investment ties by Qatar and Saudi Arabia isn't a hostile act, but a measure of their desperation. They are caught between an aggressive Iran that punishes them for their alliances and a powerful America that draws them into conflicts they can't afford. The discussion of a $2 trillion capital withdrawal represents a fundamental shift in the U.S. Gulf relationship. The decades-long bargain, oil for security, is being reevaluated in real time under missile fire. While a full-blown trade freeze remains a worst-case scenario, the fact that it's even being implicitly considered is a testament to the severity of the crisis. The Gulf states have learned a hard lesson. In a great power conflict, being a partner can be just as dangerous as being an adversary. The long-term consequences are still unfolding. The instability may permanently damage the Gulf's reputation as a safe hub for investment, threatening projects like Vision 2030. It may accelerate a global trend of de-dollarization as countries grow wary of tying their assets to American foreign policy. And it may force a permanent change in the security architecture of the Middle East, pushing the Gulf states to diversify their partnerships with other powers like China and Russia. The United States may have ignited this fictional war, but its allies are paying the immediate, brutal price. Their response could have consequences far beyond the battlefield, reshaping financial markets and diplomatic loyalties for decades. The ultimate question is no longer about who will win the war, but whether the post-war order will still have America's traditional alliances at its center. Can the U.S. Gulf partnership survive being tested by fire? Or are we witnessing the beginning of a painful, permanent decoupling?